Hi, welcome back to TFT, Truth Fairy Tidbits, where I attempt, as the Truth Fairy, to shed some light on some information that you normally wouldn't look at. And by you, I mean statists who still believe in government, among other things that we will get into. If you haven't been here before, you don't know what I'm talking about, please go back to the beginning of my videos because you're going to be lost and not know what we're doing here. So right now we're in the book, Lysander Spooner's book, No Treason, Constitution of No Authority. This is one of the main books that started to deprogram my statist brain about 5-6 years ago. And my point in being here is hopefully spoon feeding you little bits of information that'll get your brain to start working again. Because when you try to get people to look at stuff that goes against what they already believe, like statists, that you believe in government, you think there's political solutions to everything, we just got to vote harder and get the right people in there. And then you try to show them things that explain why that's completely ridiculous and illegitimate and immoral. You refuse to look at it, and I know why. It's because when your beliefs are challenged, your immediate response is to defend yourself. That's your ego's immediate response. I already hold this belief. Somebody is telling me something different than I believe. That's a threat. Your response is to ignore it, whatever, shout it down, erase, delete. I'm still on vacation time. Leave me alone. Anyways, so point being, go back and start the beginning of my videos. It'll make a lot more sense. So getting into this, quick catch up. The beginning of this is all about the consent, the supposed government and constitution resting on consent, which it doesn't, and go back and watch the videos because it explains it. So we're going to move on to the next section, which is talking about the ridiculous idea that somehow this agreement, the Constitution that they entered into, our forefathers, I still have a frog in my throat, it won't go away, entered into this contract, basically the Constitution, and that people believe that somehow that it binds everybody after them forever, which is ridiculous. So we're gonna get into explaining why that's ridiculous. So here we go. Welcome back. The Constitution has no inherent authority or obligation unless as a contract between man and man. It does not so much as even purport to be a contract between persons now existing. It purports, at most, to be only a contract between persons living, at the time this book was written, 80 years ago, but 200 years ago now. Furthermore, we know historically that only a small portion, even, of the people then existing were consulted on the subject or asked or permitted to express either their consent or dissent in any formal manner. Those persons who did give consent are all dead now, long dead. And the Constitution, so far as it was their contract, died with them. They had no natural power or right to make it obligatory upon their children. The instrument does not purport to be an agreement between anybody but the people then existing, nor does it, either expressly or impliedly, assert any right, power, or disposition on their part to bind anybody but themselves. We'll go over the language again. We, the people, that is the people then existing in the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. Okay, it is plain in the language, neither expresses nor implies that they had any intention or desire, nor that they had imagined any right or power to bind their posterity to live under it. It does not say that their posterity will, shall, or must live under it. It only says, in effect, that their hopes and motives in adopting it were that it might prove useful to their posterity. Suppose an agreement were entered into in this form. We, the people of Boston, agreed to maintain a fort on Governor's Island to protect ourselves and our posterity against invasion. This agreement, as an agreement, would clearly bind nobody but the people then existing. Secondly, it would assert no right, power, or disposition on their part to compel their posterity to maintain such a fort. It would only indicate that the supposed welfare of their posterity was one of the motives that induced the original parties to enter to the agreement. Here's another example. A man says he's building a house for himself and his posterity. He does not mean to be understood as saying that he has any thought of binding them, nor has he inferred that he is so foolish as to imagine he has any right or power to bind them to live in it. So far as they are concerned, he only means that his hopes and motives in building the house is that one or some of them may find it for their happiness to live in it. What's going on with my throat? I'm sorry, I sound crazy today. Moving on. So it was with those who originally adopted the Constitution, whatever may have been their personal intentions, the legal meaning of their language so far as their posterity was concerned, was simply that their hopes and motives in entering into the agreement were that it might prove useful and acceptable to their posterity. The language does not assert nor at all imply any right, power, or disposition on the part of the parties to the agreement to compel their posterity to live under it. For if their posterity are bound to live under it, they are nothing less than the slaves of their foolish, tyrannical, and dead grandfathers. Legally speaking, there is, in the Constitution, nothing that professes or attempts to bind the posterity of those who established it. If then those who established the Constitution had no power to bind and did not attempt to bind their posterity, the question arises whether their posterity have bound themselves. If they have done so, they can have done so in only one or both of these two ways, voting or paying taxes. Okay, I'm going to stop there. The next section, we're going to dig into voting and paying taxes. And that's what people think gives your consent to this government, because you vote or because you pay taxes. Both of those things are not done voluntarily. Well, voting, people think they're doing it voluntarily, but as he already explained in the previous chapter, the majority of people who do vote, they're not doing it as a consent to be governed. They're doing it because they're hoping that their side wins and forces the other side to do the things that they want for them. That's not voluntary consent to support a government, okay? That's when government is the only option, that's not consent. You still, either way, you're getting government. So voting for one side in hopes that they rob you a little bit less or force them to do whatever the fuck you want them to do and live under the rules that you think are what everybody should be living under. That's not consent. That's you trying to better yourself under the situation of the constant, which is government. So this is already here, and your option is red or blue team. That's not consenting to the entire conglomerate of bullshit that is there. And that's what people don't understand, is they think that government is just the entity that always, it's Jesus. It's the entity that has just always been, and there's no other choice. And what's the alternative? Exactly. Good question. We should get into that. What is the alternative? And people, that's where your brain stops, because you've been trained that there is no alternative. That's just what it is. And I'm rambling a little bit, but the alternative to being robbed and murdered and extorted and coerced, and what's the alternative to rape? I mean, a guy's got to get his jollies right. I mean, how else is he going to do it? What's the alternative? You see how ridiculous this is? You guys, come on, just this much. Just open your brain this much. Let one little spark in. Just let one little spark. Because there is an alternative to being robbed and extorted and murdered and caged and told how to run your life and asking for permission for every fucking thing and having to pay for every fucking thing that you should be able to do freely if you were free. And the alternative is not having a government, voluntary consent, voluntary cooperation. These things existed before government, okay? And you don't know that either because we're not taught that. We're taught that everything before government was chaos and wild humans running around slaughtering each other because government wasn't there to stop them. Which is stupid because more people have been murdered by government than by anything else combined in the history of the world. Okay, I'm gonna leave it there because I don't know what, my voice is not happening today, and I'm done, I guess. Anyways, so I'm back. We'll kick off some more tomorrow talking about voting and taxes, and it's gonna be really fun. Okay, remember, do not comply. Bye.